Okay, so here's the yellow motor that we're going to use to attach to the bot. But if you had a different motor and you have somewhere to attach it to, this tutorial probably is going to work anyway. This is just a little plastic gearbox motor. There's a little motor at the end, a little tiny round silver motor. It spins really fast, but it's really weak. So what this does is it gears it down so that this will turn slower but stronger, with more what's called more torque. So you don't have to worry about bumping into a little rock and then it gets stuck and doesn't move anymore. So this thing would be pretty strong. It'll be turning, uh, fairly fast still, but not really fast, not as fast as the actual motor. And if you look where we attach it to, it's actually a circle, right? And except it's got two flat shaved sections off. That's all. So it's a circle with two flat shaves. So it has, something to grab onto and twist, right? Uh, then the hole in the middle, that's just for whatever you put here, whether you put a wheel or you put a gear, whatever you put. It could be a fan, right? Whatever. It doesn't have to be a wheel. But whatever you attach here, you don't want it to fall off. So you can put a screw through it and into this, and that way it doesn't fall off this thing right here. So when we're going to make that, we're going to make it an on shape. And the first thing we're going to do is draw the wheel. Let's just draw the wheel for now. So I'm going to go over to on shape here and just draw a wheel, right? So let's say sketch, and I'll draw it this way. And here we go. And of course, wheels are round, so we'll click the center here. Always start with the center if you can, or if your idea has to. Now, how big are we going to make it? How big is this wheel? This is the main wheel. This is not the part we're attaching to the motor. This is just the wheel that's going to be driving around. Right now it's 3 inches, right? But how big do you want it? Is that too big? Remember, the bigger it is, the longer it takes to print, the more plastic you're wasting. When this thing spins one time, your car is going to travel really far. When this spins one single time, so if this is the wheel and the motor turned this one time, how far would you go? So how far would your robot go? Well, that's pretty much easy. It's 2 times pi times 3, right? 2 pi r, isn't that circumference? So it would travel 18 inches. Wow. So this thing would travel 18 inches. Oh wait, sorry, r is this is 3 inches in diameter, so it's actually less than that. So it's pi r, or pi diameter. So it'd be about 9 inches or so, 9 or 10 inches. So we would travel 9 or 10 inches in one single revolution. It traveled pretty far. But yeah, you do have to think about that part. Like what you're gonna do. I think one of the most important things is that to think about, like, hey, how fast is this motor turning, and do I really want to go that fast? The other thing is that I drew this. Sorry for this crude sketch, but let's say this is your frame right here. This is a frame of your robot, and here's a wheel that you're going to put here, right? And this wheel is just free spinning. This is where your motor is, right? So we're going to build a wheel. If you made it too short, it won't reach the floor. So here's the floor down here, right? It's not even going past the robot's bottom. So this is the frame made out of wood or plastic or whatever you make it out of, metal. And the wheel's so small that it's spinning, but it's not even touching the floor. So obviously you have to use your brain and think, like, how big could it be? And you might want it low profile, so it just barely touches the floor a little bit, right? If you drop really big, then it's like really high off the floor and it looks kind of weird. And the motor might have trouble spinning it, like if it's too big, right? Like if you made this like the size of a real car tire where it was like 20 inches across or bigger, I mean, the motor may not be able to spin it. It's so heavy and big, it may not be able to spin it. So that you got to think a little bit. So, and you could always fix this later. So I'm going to say, I think 3 inches is pretty big. I'm going to go with 2.5 inches, and then we're going to extrude this out to make it a wheel, right? Do I need the wheel that thick? No, I know from 3D printing that's going to take longer to print. Okay. I also don't want it to be like razor thin, you know what I mean? Although it would print faster. Also, I got to worry about grip. Like, how am I going to grip the ground so this thing's not sliding around? This is going to be plastic. It's going to slide around. I would like a rubber around here. So I could put a rubber band around it. So then you can find a rubber band in class or somewhere else and go, let me measure how wide that rubber band is. And then, do the width of the rubber band. And then if you wanted to, you can even put grooves here so the rubber band doesn't fall off later on. You can add a little groove up here and a groove up here so the rubber band gets stuck in between and doesn't roll off. So you can do really cool stuff like that, okay? All right, next, let's draw here, the front of the wheel. Now, how are we going to attach it to the motor right here? Well, we're definitely going to need like some sort of hole, right? So let's start with a circle, like what's called a hub. So let's draw a hub first. And how big is this hub? Well, how big is the main circle? You know, I measured it for you on this one, and I measured it at, what is this, 0.2. So the line is there, so that means it's 0.2, and then, I don't know, 207, so 0.207. So definitely I want this to be bigger than that, because this is going to be the hub. So I'm going to say 0.3 or something like that, you know? Maybe even thicker, but I'll say 0.3, and then done. And then I'm going to extrude that out. And obviously I don't need it 1 inch. How much room is there to play around with here? Let's see if I have that picture. Give me a second. I do have that picture somewhere. Right here. Right here. So I did measure that right here to see how wide it is, okay? And I got that measurement, and I actually just realized I put it away, so let's see. There it is. And then I just rotated it around so that you can see it is the same. You know, I just flipped this whole, you know, dial caliper around, and I got 0.350 almost. So I need it to be at least that long. So 0.350 sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to say 0.350. Okay, so I know I'm going to need that much length so I can insert the motor into this, you know? And then you could put the hole on this side if you want this sticking out of your robot. If you don't, then you can put the hole on this side. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to put the hole on this side. So sketch, I'm going to sketch the top of this circle right here. Put it towards me. And I'm going to draw the part where the motor is going to insert. So I need a circle that is, and let's look for it here. I have too many pictures up right here. There it is. So there's the outside of the circle. Notice I'm not measuring the flat sides right now. I'm measuring the full circle of that plastic. So I'm getting 0.2, 207. I think that was the one I was measuring before. So 0.207. So let's click here. So 0.207. But remember, there's tolerances. We should add a few thousandths of an inch for tolerances. So 0.210, 212, you know, something like that. So if I go 212, I'm adding 5 thousandths of an inch tolerance. Okay, so that's good. Might have a tiny wiggle in there, but it should be good. But I don't want to finish my drawing though, because I need this to be, I don't want the full round circle. I want the 2 flat sides as well. So I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and I got to look at how far apart these are and stuff like that. So let's work this out. Here's the measurement on the flat sides. See? So if you look, I've measured the flat sides, and I get 0.145. So if you want to add some tolerance there, you can go up to 50 if you want, 0.150. You know, I'm adding, again, 5 thousandths tolerance. If it felt too sloppy and loose and you want a little tighter fit, you're welcome to, you know, try to redesign this with tighter tolerances. Right now, I think 5 thousandths of an inch is pretty safe. So 0.150. So that's how wide it is. But I need it centered, obviously. So I'm going to say, hey, from here to here, that distance should be 0.150 divided by 2, because this is, you know, half the distance. So I just said 0.150 divided by 2, and there, it's perfectly in the middle. And I'm pretty much done. Now you might see that there's still some play here, because I did not say how wide this rectangle has to be this way, okay? I did not. But I'm going to move it in here. and I'm going to delete them anyway. So I'm going to go right here to the trim tool, and I'm going to trim this part off. That's very important to me, and this is very important to me. And honestly, you could finish right now. You could just be, that's it, and we'll just extrude this part. I think that will work. If you wanted to, you can delete all this out. If you wanted to delete all of it out, you know? And here's that piece right there. There we go. So then we go to done, and let's extrude and click this, but we're going to remove and put a hole in there. We do not need 1 inch. I think the number was 0.350 if I remember right. Okay, so 0.350 will put us all the way to the end. So that will fit in there perfectly tight. And actually we can slide it on the motor right now. 3D print this, slide it on the motor, and it should totally work fine, and it should start spinning. The only thing is it could fall off after a while, right? So we're going to want to put a hole in here. So we're going to say sketch, and we're going to sketch this bottom down here. You could also do this from the other side if you wanted to. So I can say sketch here and just click the back. So it doesn't really matter which way you do. And I'm going to click that center because that's exactly where that hole is. And how big is that hole? I measured this. Now technically usually you use this end to measure the inside of a circle, but I was trying to take a picture and make it a nice picture, so I rotated it around the other way. Here you just have to do your best, but it doesn't need to be darn perfect because as long as a screw fits into it, right? So right here, it's not even 1. So you see this 1 here? It's not 0.1. If it was, I'd see a black line here. We're almost, if this black needle got to the 0 here, then we would get to 0.1. So this is 0.072. 0.072. So I'm just going to round that to a nice even 75. So I'm going to take my dimension tool and say 0.075. And that's my hole size. And I'm going to click extrude and click this and say remove that hole. And it doesn't really, I mean, it's removing a whole inch, but it doesn't really matter because it's just going to create a hole there. And that should do it. We can put a nice screw in. We'll just shove the motor in here, and then we'll just rotate to this side and shove a screw in here and tighten it as long as that screw is long enough to fit through the thickness of this thing right here. And that's the other thing. If you make this wheel really thick, you may need to offset that. And that's something you could do too. So if your screw, let's say you only had 1 screw. You're like, man, the screw is just not long enough to reach all the way through this dumb wheel right here. Well, you know, be smart. Measure how wide the screw head is, and make sure there's room for it. And go, oh, the screw head is 1/4 inch wide, or almost 1/4 inch. So I'll just make this a little bit bigger than that. And then we can go like this. And I wish my screw was 0.1 inches longer, so then you can say, oh, well, I'll just go in more. Oops. I'll just say extrude, click here, and say remove 0.1 inches. And now it's 0.1 inches longer because the screw sits down in here, and then it's still got some plastic here. You just got to be careful you don't remove too much because you'll go all the way through. But that way the screw sits down in here and the screw doesn't stick out. But some people like the screw look to be on the outside. Also, this doesn't look pretty, right? I mean, it's just a big flat disc. So if you think that's ugly, you can create designs here. You can cut little slots here, make spokes, right? We can cut triangles out. We can cut ovals out, like little ovals, or just slits. You could cut like 1 slit and do a pattern tool, I'm probably going to mess this up because I'm doing this on the fly and I didn't even try to do this, but you can create like some little, like this, and you'd probably want to make sure it's perfectly centered on this, and do all the measurements correctly and stuff and whatnot. But once you're done, you can kind of say, done, and you can extrude it now. You could have done the pattern tool right now, or you can do it later. So we can say extrude, remove. See that? And you can just do a pattern on the feature. So I think there's a pattern tool here. Linear pattern, no, we want a circular pattern. And we don't want to do the whole part. We're just going to do a feature. And we're going to do this extrusion feature. And the axis of the pattern will be here. Does that work? Or do I need a line? I think it's going to want me to put a line there. So I would need to put a line right here. So sketch this plane and put a line. I think it'll be a lot happier if I do that. And then let's try it now. Rotation feature. A feature. What feature pattern to do? That extrusion right here. There we go. Axis of pattern. I can click this line right here and say that's the axis. How many do I want? I don't know. Let's try 12. And say, see? So we can do that. Hey, that saves plastic and it's still just as strong, you know? And you could probably even do more if you wanted to, who knows? Or a different cooler shape like an oval or something. But that's pretty much it, folks. And of course, to get your part out, there's a whole video on that by exporting it and whatnot.